Hi, welcome back to my garden. Over the last few weeks, weeks and months, I've been talking about a question that's really, I think, crucial for all of us. Why don't we spend more time doing the things that we really want to do? Following our dreams, if you will. And I've put forward a number of reasons, but I think it's not too controversial to claim that to some degree we're socially programmed. We have a sort of default operating system that we absorb from childhood out on into our life, which just makes us make decisions sort of without really thinking about them. Assumptions that to a degree rule our lives. And one of the most powerful of these forces is that of sort of consumerism, materialism. And from a very young age, via a variety of different inputs, guiding hands, we are led to believe that we will find meaning in life through acquiring material things and consuming things. Material things, and now in the sort of 21st century, virtual things as well. Proxies for the material, but no less important. But over the last couple of weeks, I've suggested that whilst it's easy to blame greedy, malevolent sort of social forces, capitalists who are manipulating us into behaving a certain way, contrary to our best interests. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been suggesting that perhaps this also takes place in our own homes with the people nearest and dearest to us. And I'd make a case that a lot of my attitudes, and attitudes that maybe acted against my or pushed me in directions against my best interests, came essentially from my parents. And I don't want to suggest that my parents placed money above all else. Far from it. They were certainly principled people. They had, I think, a good, solid set of values. But there was an element where money was very important to them. And in a way, certainly with my mother, a lack thereof was a problem. Now, this wasn't just because my mother had very good taste, she liked antiques and so forth. No, I don't think that was the issue. Or that she looked down on people who had less than her, that she felt embarrassed or ashamed. I think at the heart of it, there was a feeling that she certainly believed that you would be less fairly treated depending on your background. A sort of, I don't know how to explain it, an anti-entitlement, a disentitlement. Is that a word? I don't know, but I think you know what I mean. And certainly these days, there's all sorts of people who go on about entitlement, and I watch a series of chess videos, and they're always going on the millennials and a sense of entitlement, and I do sort of feel that it kind of cuts both ways. I have my doubts about that, about a lot of those arguments. But this anti-entitlement or disentitlement. I really don't know what the phrase would be, the word would be. This was certainly something that I think loomed large in my mother's worldview. Let me give you a very simple example. Towards the end of my penultimate year in primary school, there was prize giving coming up, and I think it was anyway. I may have the details slightly out of place, but it is, after all, we're talking about 1978. At any rate, there was a big event, and the prefects for the next year were going to be announced. It was quite an honour, and if I'm being fairly honest, I was an ambitious young lad by that point. And I had my eye on the prize. I thought no one deserved the accolade of head boy more than me. It was really something that I'd set my sights on. But I remember, perhaps it was the day before, my mother kind of warning me, cautioning me that, as much as I may well deserve it, she'll be very proud of me if I am. If I'm not, I mustn't be too disappointed. All the normal sort of things that parents might say to their children at the age of 11, so that they don't get their hopes up and have their little hearts broken when things don't work out the way that they wanted them to. But she didn't stop there. She suggested that after all, the other, perhaps only potential rival for the position, and really in terms of this being awarded to someone who had academic, sporting, cultural accomplishments to their name, could speak in public, outgoing. I mean, I was probably all sort of ego to one side. I was the standout candidate. But she suggested that another lad might get the post because she suggested he came from the right sort of family. And by that she meant they were richer. They were members of the tennis club. I think his father was the chairman of the tennis club. They were professional people. And so somehow their parents' position in the social pecking order would carry more weight than my accomplishments versus my rivals. As it happens, all worked out well on the day, and yes, I was the lucky one. But this kind of cautioning of me, this suggestion that however hard you work, whatever your capacities, it might not be enough, because there were other people whose face fitted a little bit more, that there was a sort of pecking order to society, and the underpinning of that was largely money. I mean, of course, if I'd grown up in Britain, there was a class system, and there is still a class system. One need only look at the string of prime ministers who are old Etonians, and I think it's 26 or maybe it's 17, I can't remember, but it's an extraordinarily large number to come from just one school. I mean, it's not a surprise that they come from public schools, from the elite, for many reasons, but just the one suggests that there is a certain favoritism at play. And my mother definitely warned of this. In both my mother and father's case, there was a reason why they were concerned about money. And that was, I suppose, their own childhoods. They had grown up during the Second World War. My grandfather had left for the North African campaign, leaving his wife, my mother and her two younger siblings, twins, brothers, and she was a maths teacher. Teachers' salaries weren't that high. She gave private lessons to supplement things. I don't think life was easy. And my father was evacuated, and his parents came from a sort of working class background. So, neither of them grew up in the lap of luxury. But we certainly didn't want for anything in sunny South Africa. I mentioned this last week. We had a pool. But what I was told, what I kind of took on board, was that when people were selected for positions, jobs, awards, or for that matter, I suppose for romantic entanglements, above all other factors, the family you came from was an overwhelmingly powerful force, and that's something you needed to, I suppose, compensate for. If I was to get ahead in life, to achieve the finer things, to meet the young lady of my dreams, all that sort of stuff, well, I wouldn't just need to be the best, I'd need to be better than the best, because I'd have to achieve against all the odds. Now, I don't want to argue that some of this wasn't true. I think there is all sorts of social bias at play. There always has been, and I'm not saying, well, let's just accept that there always will be, nothing new under the sun, as my father would be wont to say. No, but it is a thing. However, I guess if you believe that money really isn't all that important, if you accept my kind of argument that I've made on many occasions in this video, that, let's face it, money is simply a means of facilitating transaction, and it has no sort of meaning beyond that. People might give it that meaning, and we might give it that meaning, but actually this is a personal construction. And a more important question to ask is why do we need the money, and how much do we need it? How much do we need? What for? And if we have more than enough, well, that's fine. The fact that other people have better economic circumstances than we do is neither here nor there. We need to focus on what we're trying to do and do our best to make it happen. And I don't think that was the message that I got. I don't think the message, for example, at school was, look, what you need to find when you think about a course of study and beyond that a profession, is you need to find something that you love doing. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of follow your passion or don't follow your passion. Is that good advice? But certainly do things because they're what you deeply love doing. And in the end, I guess I made choices because more than anything else, I saw the need to make as much money as possible as being perhaps the number one decisive factor. Right, well, the ramble continues, and I'm not sure where we're going with all of this. Just as at the end of last week's video, I need to watch this again and see if it makes any sense. Hopefully it does, or I hope that it does. Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, trust your lives are filled with joy. And until next week, from sunny Brazil, ciao.